Mi gente, you already know who it is. It's Danny Limelight. And I need all of you to subscribe to According to Woods podcast on Facebook, YouTube, and all other platforms.
What's good, party people? This is According to Woods, and I have the honor and privilege of having a fighter out of the impressive, the prestigious Team Oyama out in Orange County, and she'll be making her return to Invicta Fighting Championship this week. It is fight week, but she's the quiet storm, Brittney Cloudy. Brittney, what's going on?
Hey, man, nothing much, just putting on these finishing touches heading into fight week, man.
Yeah, and it's crazy because, I don't think there's been a team that has gotten more calls to fight during this kind of quarantine deal than Team Oyama. Like, it's got to be I'm sure you must look around the room and be like, "Oh, you got to fight, you got to fight." It's like Oprah, "You got to fight, you got to fight." Yeah, we all got fights.
Yes, it's definitely has been a great atmosphere to be in, to have a team full of fighters who were all still managing to be active, and that just kind of keeps you going during this time. So definitely has been I've been fortunate to be a part of the team and being a part of the activity, and hoping to just keep it going.
No, here it is. I mean, keep it going. Can't stop, won't stop, right? But I mean, obviously, 2020 has been kind of weird, right? Like, it's definitely unique, right? So, I mean, in terms of like where you were when you kind of found out like things were, kind of not becoming normal. Like, where were you, and like what were the effects?
Uh, Man, just to think about this year in totality period, I'm like, man, it's already November. First of all, it seems like I remember earlier in the year thinking, when am I going to get a chance to fight again? It's going to be like, will I get to fight like by the end of this year? Like that sense of uncertainty. So I guess towards the beginning of the year, everything seemed it was still going as planned. I had a fight in March, and right after that, that's when everything kind of took a turn. By the time I got back to Orange County, they were getting ready to shut everything down. So after that, it was just a matter of like, okay, so how do I just maintain and keep training through this? Just staying in shape and just kind of seeing what happens, because no one has the answers for anything. So just kind of like just a standstill in the sense of trying to maintain and keep going, and going up and down all sorts of types of feelings and emotions about what life is going to look like, and just also just coping with all of the the also the not so great things about the pandemic as well, because it's even bigger than fighting. There's lives lost, jobs lost, and it's been a really hard time for many people across the world. So it's been definitely a roller coaster, to say the least. But um, through all of that, we still try to find a way to keep pressing forward, keep holding on to positive things, as simple as it could be, but been maintaining the best that I can. And I'm just always just grateful for the fact that before this year is over, I'm still going to get a chance to get back in a cage. So I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. All hard work and dedication kind of leading to a culmination of good, right? Regardless of all the craziness, like you got to have some kind of semblance of I don't know if normality, but definitely a ray of hope, so to speak.
Mm, definitely. It's with everything, life always brings some trials and tribulations, and you have to find something in your most inner being to keep the hope and faith alive, whatever path it is that you're doing. So in these times, that's what I've been holding on to.
Absolutely. Which I get it. I mean, it's kind of off topic, but Alex Ramirez showed up in the chat, and I think this is pretty interesting. Um, According to Woods, what if I was able to host a giveaway to your podcast, perhaps a PS5, get 100 viewers? We can pick a winner at the end of the podcast next month. I am in. And I mean, Brittany, that That seems like a cool deal, and I think Alex for that. I mean, that'd be something. I mean, PS5. That's the kind of the toast of the town, right? So
I
who
mean,
would,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's holiday season too. And if you're feeling like you want to give a good gift, I'm pretty sure there'll be some a lot of people out there who would love that gift.
Absolutely. So, Alex, go ahead and slide into those DMs, good sir, good brother, and we'll work it out. We'll work it out for sure. Now, now, obviously, that March fight that was LFA, right?
Yes.
I believe I was there. Yeah, that was at the OC hangar.
No,
Or was it?
this was in Dallas.
Oh, this the Dallas one, right?
That one was the one before.
Right.
My teammate was fighting on that one, I believe. Yeah.
Lisa, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I
So,
was in Dallas.
I mean, were you kind of aware, like, hey, things because I mean, quite subsequently, right after, it was just like that's when everything started to shut down. Were you kind of aware? Like, did you see like mass present in the airport, or I mean, was it kind of normal until it shut down?
Um, I feel it was pretty normal at that point in time. It was like it was being spoken about and it was being talked about, but it was kind of like in the background of my mind and my thought, and it wasn't anything that had affected me like directly at that time. Not until they actually, was shutting down things, when it was like, okay, now it's definitely has hindered like gyms and fights, because in the world of like, if we still can train, we're still going to train, and if there's still fights, we're still fighting. That didn't really stop that, but once they started like officially shutting down, that's when it became like, okay, here's something that you can't avoid and just put it on the back shelf like it's right here in your face. So yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, it was dicey for all, and I can imagine what it must be like to. I mean, especially as an athlete, where I mean, if you don't play, you don't get paid, right? That's a different scenario. So if there's no fights, for you to be able to hone and ply your craft, I mean, those are paychecks, those are sponsorship opportunities that are getting missed out on, and it's just a world. I mean, it could be a world of hurt.
Yeah, it definitely was, because it shifted like everything that I had planned coming into moving to California and training and everything, because I'm originally from St. Louis, and um, by that time I was maybe about 8 months in of living here, and I was trying to establish myself. And so once that shut down, and then it was okay, well, there's no fights, so there's also no income, and so what are you going to do? So had to you know readjust, and I started, found the job to work in the meantime to pay my bills, because the bills didn't stop. But so that shifted, and that shifted and made my life just a little bit different. Fighting was something that I had to piece in with, also being able to take care of myself during that time as well. So recently, actually, this past Friday, so I found a job, and I was working in an assisted living overnight. I figured in my thoughts were, if I work overnight, that'll give me more flexibility during the day to be able to train and make our practices. That came with a whole nother set of stuff too. But I managed to make that work. I worked there for like, it's been like 7 months, but Friday was like my last day. So it was like a little bittersweet, because, I did really enjoy like the people that I met, and I did enjoy my job, but at the same time, the reason I'm here is to fight. So it definitely feels good to be able to let that go, and now like really put my head fully back into, you know, fighting. So still kind of uncertain what happens after this, but hey, I'm going with it.
Yeah, you gotta roll with it.
Yeah.
Absolutely roll with it. Which I definitely want to get into the a pre fighting career of Brittney Cloudy, because I mean you were, I mean, a consummate athlete through and throughout your youth. So I mean, I guess what was that? What led you to have this like competitive mentality? I mean, obviously on track and field, that was like the first foray of what we would later see in the MMA cages. But I mean, where does that come from, and where did it start?
Um, Actually, it really didn't even start with track. It started with basketball. Um, I remember I was in fifth grade and I was outside on the front porch dribbling a basketball, and there was a car that drove past that happened to be with a basketball coach, and she was dropping off some of her players. They looped back around and stopped and had a conversation with me. They were like, "Oh, you play basketball? Do you want to play basketball?" So next thing you know, I was like, "Yeah." So next thing you know, I was playing on their team, and they were like an eighth grade private school team, and I was in fifth grade at this time. And the reason why they stopped is because I was, massively tall for my age, and so I ended up being like their center, and so that was the my first introduction into like competitive sports, and that was my first love. So basketball was it. So I played basketball from there on out. AAU basketball, middle school. Then when I went to high school, I played basketball there all 4 years, and then I also did track as well. So there's basketball season, there was track season. I was just I think I was just like a natural athlete. I just had the height and I had the mindset of I was just very active and I am very hands on. So sports was just my thing, and I got in there and I like fell in love with basketball, and that was my thing, and I played that, and I love the team aspect. Track was in the At first track was I'm just gonna stay in shape for basketball season, so I'm gonna go do track. But then uh, I really enjoyed the field events, and I did long and triple jump. They were mostly my events that I enjoyed doing the most. So I was a jumper. Then from there on, I made the decision to just stick with track. I feel like I would have more success individually, and that's what took me into competing in track in college. So like it was just something that that's always been a part of me, and I've always been competitive and active, and I mean it gave me success. It made me it was a good positive outlet, in addition to like school. So um, sports have just always been a part of my life, and I mean, I couldn't imagine doing anything else. Even in the next chapter after all of this, I'm still gonna find something to do to stay active. It's just who I am.
I love it, and it's kind of a bit of happenstance, right? The fact that the team just so happened to be dropping off in your neighborhood and kind of swinging back around. But like, I mean, were you watching basketball at the time before you got, especially in St. Louis? That's Midwest, right? Like that's
Yeah,
theoretically speaking. I mean, that's we're looking at like a state over, and you have like the Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan and what
yeah.
have you. So I mean, was prior to actually playing, did you love the sport?
Yeah, I do. I love the sport. I mean, I definitely watch basketball. I wouldn't say that I was like hardcore, like super into like watching basketball every day or like competitively into any type of fantasy sports or anything like that. But I definitely watched. I remember my first basketball jersey. My number was 8 for Kobe Bryant. Like so, I was a Kobe Bryant fan, and I remember watching. Um, those games of Michael Jordan and things of that nature. And um, so that was always that, and it was just mostly like people around me too, being in a neighbor, like being around people and my peers who are also doing sports. That because that neighborhood that I grew up in and that car with those other players, they ended up being like my childhood friends. So it was like one of those things that here are the people who are also around me too, and this is what we're interested in, and so that grew as well.
Now, obviously, a pivot, right? Like most people had to do this year is kind of pivot, in terms of priorities and what
Mhm.
have you, right? But this is something that you did. You went from, I mean, an accomplished, basketball career, and then kind of pivoting towards track and field. So,
Mhm.
what prompted that?
Well, I guess I think my friends will always say that I end up doing a lot of juggling. I'm like a great multitasker. I've always done multiple things. So there was just this overlap of doing both. And if they would have had let's see, like I think it was wrestling season was like the same season as basketball, and like if I could have done that in a different season, I would have, but I couldn't. So there was like I just wanted there was what if it interested me, I wanted to do it, and so there was the overlap of playing basketball and track at the same time. But just like with a lot of things, you get to a point to where it's like, well, kind of need to focus on something a little bit more. You know, you're dividing your time and your energy into something. So um, making that pivot, as you say, it just came down to like, okay, what would bring me well, first of all, I was like, I wanted to not play. Well, track you don't play, basketball you play, but track you compete. So I wanted to figure out where can I actually compete the most without anything else affecting my participation. So that was one aspect that helped me to choose track because it was individualized. And because at the time when I was seeking colleges, I didn't really like have a lot of recruitment out for basketball. And so I kind of, but I had a lot for track. So I felt like I would be more successful because I already I did lot better in track, like my standards and my marks that I made, so I had options in that aspect, and so I just thought that logically that I'll probably be able to fall into more success that way. And um, I enjoy everything that comes with track, like the training, the strength and conditioning, the well, maybe not the running part as much, and that's why I always have to clarify with people with running track. Is like I did the field part of track, which is the short sprinting and then jumping. So I'm an explosive like athlete. I like to do explosive things, quick, fast. But over the time, I definitely grew into a love of actually running and just being in shape and being well. So that kind of helped me. I just made the decision to like let me focus on one thing, and so that I can give myself the best chance and opportunity to go as far as I can in that sport.
No, I think that's absolutely brilliant. But being able to do one sport and then kind of transfer. I mean, obviously, you know different sports, right? Long
Mhm.
distance runners, marathon runners versus short sprinters. It's a different. It's kind of the same thing, but it's a little bit different. It's like they're all like ice cream. One's vanilla, one's pecan, right? So
Yeah.
the it's just subtle differences or sometimes dramatic differences. But were there any carryovers that you had from basketball that you brought over? Because obviously in basketball you kind of had a natural advantage being taller than some of the people your age, right? So, going into track, were there some carryovers from that, some residual kind of advantages?
Yeah, I think within all these sports, it comes down to what are my strengths, and my strengths have always been that I was fast, that I was strong and explosive. So take that from basketball because that was that was one of my strongest strengths was being able to be fast. So believe it or not, I brought the ball up the court. Like I played point guard like half the time, or like you would think that I'll be on the block, but I wasn't as much. But I had speed and agility, and that transfers into track speed and being able to be coordinated, doing a lot of lower body explosive movements for jumping. So like that aspect of me transferred into that, and those same things transferred into fighting, because when you realize like with boxing and everything, it starts with your feet, having good footwork, being fast, being explosive, and I had to learn how to punch. I figured that out. So with everything, there's always those other technical pieces too that you learn along the way, but just as a basis, what were my strengths, and those strengths that I've had is what transferred and is what helped made me into that particular good athlete in that sport.
I love it. I love it. So I gotta ask. So in terms of your competitive nature and fire, I mean, how much time in between, your where your track and field career kind of, I wouldn't say ended, but I mean when it kind of, you kind of started phasing out to when you were influenced by MMA and later moving, from Missouri to California. Like, how much time in between from track and field to like, oh, this MMA thing, this could be something.
Well, there wasn't really a time in between. I like really just flowed right in from one thing to another. Like after college, I continued to compete in track. I actually learned to do some other events to do the multi event. So I ended up like doing high jump, the 800. I like competed in like the heptathlon, and I did all of that. And I did that for a couple of years. My coach, he ended up getting a job for Mizzou. He's still there now. And then I had like also like strained my hamstring for that last competition, and it was really frustrating because like for 2 years I was investing a lot of time and energy and money going to the track meets and trying to, because I was trying to hit the standard for the trials for that would have been 2016. And so it was just kind of like that last meet. um, and it was I'm thinking about it, it was an amazing jump. I definitely like I was having inconsistencies on the runway with getting legal jumps in, but that injury kind of led me down the hill of like, all right, well, maybe I'll just wrap this up. And then my coach was leaving, so I just was kind of like, all right, well. But at the same time, I was going to MMA fights and watching MMA and learning about MMA and jujitsu and things like that. So it was also kind of like, well, here I am doing track, but then I'm also like over there kind of looking over there too. So it was like, all right, well, I think I feel at peace with, I put in, extra time and energy to like reach this. Maybe I'll just want to let me try this out. This seems really interesting. Yeah. So from there, I ended up just started doing jujitsu and then learning boxing. And then it just blurred right into then this and then this and then fight. And then, so there was like pretty much no stopping between just, I mean, healing myself, but mentally I was already stepping into a whole nother field of a sport.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. And again, that seems kind of a prevailing pattern in your life and career where like
Mm.
you're doing something and then you kind of reach a pinnacle and then whether ceremoniously or unceremoniously
Yeah.
you already got your eye on what's next, right? So you
Yeah.
were saying like you were going to MMA fights. So that was there in Missouri. So I mean, had you watched it on TV prior to attending a fight?
Yeah, I remember watching like some of the MMA fights. Like I think it was definitely like around the time of like Ronda Rousey, and I was like, that period of time. And I was like, oh, okay, like oh, arm bars, like all of that was foreign to me because I've never done any combative sports before. So everything was super new, and but how my mind works is like I'm intrigued by new things. I'm intrigued by challenges. Um, I can be overly ambitious sometimes, but I was like, that looks pretty fierce. And like at first I was like, wincing, watching like, oh man, jeez. But then it was like, okay, well, man, it takes a lot of grit and a lot of heart, and like thinking about like everything else that comes with it. Like not everybody does that, and so watching the sport, but actually more so learning about like the technique and like setup and the strategy. Is like a game of chess with your body in a sense, and that's the biggest thing that really hooked me in.
So I mean, obviously, basketball is physical, right? But I mean,
Mhm.
there's of getting fouled, even like the most like crazy of fouls is
Yeah.
nothing like getting punched in the face or watching somebody getting punched in the face. So, what was your family's reaction to you doing it like that? I mean, I'm sure it had to be kind of unnerving, right? But What was the initial impression of your family?
That's funny, cause I think about like my dad. He was always one coming to my basketball games and my track meets and stuff. And then he's like, and then when I told him I was like, I want to do boxing, he was like, "Oh, Brittney, what?" He was like, "What do you mean?" Like, he's like, kind of like, I don't know about this one. But then, like, I guess after my first fight, after my first couple of fights, he was like, "Okay," I think he started to come around about like, "Okay, I see you," So it took a little bit for him to be like, probably at the end of his mind, he's probably like, "Oh man, what is she gonna do? She gonna go get hurt?" Parents worry. They don't want their kids to get hurt or things like that. My mom is still kind of like, "You still doing MMA? You still want to do that? We gonna go back to teaching. You gonna come home?" She supports it, but she's at the same time, she's like, "So what's next? You gonna get back into this?" Like, but she still supports me either way it goes. But just the apprehension. But once I got in there and showed like, hey, I can take a punch. After you watch a couple, you're like, all right, you can calm your anxiety down a little bit and be like, all right, well, you sticking with it, so I'll support you with it too. So it's good to have that support still.
That's absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Now, in terms of being at a local show versus actually training, right? Like, there's got to be a feeling out process. So, what was that process like? I mean, did you put in the Google machine like MMA gyms? Did you find out from somebody at the fights that you're attending? Like, how does that
Yeah.
process work, and where was it?
Well, it's like when you go to like a live fight and the person who's fighting, it's a whole different type of energy that you get. Like you go to a fight, it's already like very intense. It's like don't blink, make sure you're paying attention, and it's just like you feel the adrenaline, the crowd, and everything, and it's just like, oh man, this is exciting. And you're like, oh man, it's kind of crazy too. But then when you like, you watch someone who trains, and then they go in there, and then they fight, and then they're victorious, and you're like right there with them. It's like, man, like that's a really, like, it gives you kind of like, just you're not in the sport, but you kind of get the side of it, like what the process of training would be like, and going in and taking all of that training, because you're training forever. And that's one thing that's really different about basketball and track. And it's probably the most frustrating thing for me, because I'm used to competing like weekly, or basketball games a couple times a week, but investing so much time and energy, months into training, and then you go in and you don't have a full 15 minutes, because it can be over whenever. So to take all that hard work and everything that you've been learning, and all of the grit and all the grind, and the weight cut and all of that stuff, and then you get in there and you can finally actually you know present yourself and put it together against someone who's actively trying to do the same thing, which is finish you. It, it it's a really, really great feeling, and the word great doesn't really embody that, but that emotion and everything that comes with it, all of the emotions that come with it, from the beginning to having your hand raised, and to the aftermath of having all of the you know everyone happy for you too, that also you know makes the sport makes the sport what it is, and why it kind of like, all right, you know what, let's see how I want to see how I put it together in there. So I guess I got to start from scratch. It takes a lot of patience. So, but I did it.
Well, no, patience. Patience is definitely a virtue, especially
Mhm.
in combat sports. But uh, so we got to shout them out because they were the catalysts of you not only attending the fights but later becoming a fighter yourself. But who was the person that kind of invited you to your first live show?
Well, at the time, I was my boyfriend at the time is Charles Johnson, and right now he's in Thailand. He made the team out there, so he's been training out in Thailand. So I was right there, like, throughout the whole process while going to training, and like he taught me a lot of my first boxing and everything. And so watching him and like being on that side of it and supporting him just from a spectator side, kind of like what captured me in, and then also being there alongside training as well. We train at St. Charles MMA back home in St. Louis. Really great jujitsu and really great people out there. So we got a lot of great work in, and um, yeah, he definitely pulled me into it, and I haven't left it. So I'm so grateful for that. Like that was it was just like that things that happen. It's like, here's how this happened, and next thing you know, he was in it because he also was a track athlete too, and then he got into his way, and then next thing you know, here we met through track, and the next thing you know, here I am getting into the sport too. So it was like literally like a little pull me along sort of thing. And hey, I mean, great things happen, and it takes great places, and who knows where I'm gonna end up, but uh, the journey is the journey is definitely the greatest part of it so far, and either way, wherever it's going is going to be somewhere great.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And I mean, I so that first fight, your first fight. Obviously, you were training at St. Charles. You have this accomplished, athletic background. But how soon after you were training at the gym do you get an offer for your first fight?
Let's see. I want to say I was training for about like 6 months. uh did some jiu-jitsu and some boxing, and then I did golden gloves. Yeah, because I started training around 2015, like summerish around that time, and then I did the 2016 golden gloves. So that was my first competitive competition for boxing. So I did that, and at the time, it's like I want to say like now there's so many female fighters. Like there's a rise, but at the time it was like really hard to find other female fighters, and really hard to find female fighters like my weight class. So it was just two of us for the Golden Gloves, and so we swung it out. Swung it out for that. That was an experience. They gave us 1 minute rounds. It was like what? So it was like a slugfest. But anyway, yeah, that's neither here or there. And then I had another boxing match. Yeah, I know, right? That was a little crazy. I had another boxing match where I really had got a chance to, you know, see some progress and improve. But then that was a whole ordeal too. I showed up to the place and I thought that it was going to be inside this like really nice place that they built, and it was in July. No, it was outside. They had a boxing ring outside in the summertime in St. Louis. Ah, that was rough. But yes, I had a couple boxing matches, and then I had like a jujitsu tournament, and then I did a couple kickboxing matches. So I like was trying to progressively work my way into MMA. So I had a couple kickboxing, and then after that, I went and had my first MMA fight like that year of 2016. Yeah, and that was
Wow.
so.
Wow.
I
Now, I mean,
wasn't training a very long time. I was just, I wasn't training really a long time. I've been learning as I went, and still to this day.
that's a pretty crazy way. I mean, you literally jumped in at the deep end. I mean, even still, right? Even if it were just like two competitors in your weight class, you still competed at Golden Gloves. For an
Yeah,
amateur boxer, that is the pinnacle. That's just like here in California winning the California state title, from Camo in terms of
yeah,
MMA. Like that is as high as you can get aside from the Olympics that you can get in the sport of boxing here in the US.
yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah. It was exciting. It was definitely a great experience. It was like, it's kind of like how I feel about my pro debut for Invicta. It was like you would think that you would start like at something low level, and work your way up to bigger things. But it was like, all right, Golden Gloves. And it was like, all right, your pro debut Invicta. And you're going against, this Eddie Bravo champion. So it was just like, I was like, okay. And I guess my mentality is like, at first I'm like, oh man. But then I'm like, all right, well, you wanted to do this. So what are you going to do? Say no? Like, all right, no. It's like you go for it. It's like, it's a fight. Hey, hey, it's a fight. So sometimes that's why I don't understand why. I mean, there's strategy into picking your opponents, but at the end of the day, it's like my mindset is like, hey, I believe in myself, and what happens when that cage closes, nothing before anything about our previous fights, how many followers you have, or any of that stuff matters, because it's going to come down to who wants it more and who wants their hand raised at the end of the day. So
No, I mean that's absolutely true. Now, Alan Roque, who just competed last night and won a unanimous decision win, and he'll actually be on this very podcast right after this. But he says boxing outdoors in the summer, the South, hell nah. And he himself, I mean, geez, is in the Carolinas, so I mean that's got to be nuts. That's not fun at all.
yeah, I remember like, oh, my feet are so hot. My feet are so
Yes.
hot. And I was like in the ring, and I was like trying to take my shoes off. And I was like, I gotta take them off. I gotta take them off. And I took them off. And it was the worst idea ever, because it was worse. My feet on the actual boxing mat. Oh, it was terrible. I was like, I learned that. It was hot. But hey, that was an experience. It
Yeah, it makes
was
for a
an
cool
experience.
story, you know. Makes
Hmm.
for a cool story, all right? But I
Yeah.
mean, I remember there was a like a MMA contest in the Pacific Northwest. I want to say maybe like Oregon or what have you, but they had like a straight out like amateur MMA contest and like got sued because it was outside in the middle of the summer and yeah, there's no protection. So people got like third degree burns and fever blisters and all that jazz.
Uh,
So yeah, it complicated things for sure. But yeah, there was a lawsuit, and I mean, fortunately, that promoter never ran again because I mean, that's some foresight. Like, obviously, you have to have as a promoter some sort of insurance for your fighters and what have you, and at the
right.
very least, have your fighters' well-being, you know, in your best state of mind. And it wasn't like, oh, barefoot fighters in the middle of like the summer. That seems cool, right?
Yeah.
Not cool.
Yeah. Gotta definitely, like, I mean, we're out there, putting our bodies on the line. Can we get some little fallback action for the care of, all of that? So that's important.
No, 100%, 100%. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Which I mean, I'm kind of infuriated by that person and the thought. But anyway, yeah. And he says hashtag heat stroke. 100%,
Yeah.
100%. My goodness. Now, obvious. So competing in both boxing, well, all three boxing, jiu-jitsu, and MMA in Missouri. When were you like, maybe I should kind of get a change of scenery. Like, I might have to leave Missouri. Like, what was the process, and then what brought you specifically out to Southern California?
Um, well, I guess there was like two lines of thoughts with that. There was the one thought of, man, I went to college in St. Louis. I've lived in St. Louis all my life. And I was feeling like, man, what life would have been like had I like went to college somewhere else to get the experience of moving away from home. So there was always that piece of me that wanted to leave home to experience being somewhere else. And um, and also, I'm not a fan of the winter. I definitely would see myself being somewhere warm. So that's why I was looking at the coastline of places of like, oh, that sounds like it would be a nice place to be. When I was thinking about like, well, if I did go somewhere, where would I go? And then also, I remember one of the reasons why I went pro was because I ran out of people to fight in the area. So it was like, okay, well, I need more people to actually compete with. And so in the area, when it comes to like the local promotions, it was like, who am I going to fight? Who actually wants to fight me? So then it was like, all right. So I wanted to expand. Um, at the time that I was a little bit after my pro debut, I was like also in school and I was finishing my master's. And once I was getting towards the end of that, it was one of those things where I was like, okay, I think that's the only thing that's still keeping me here. So once I finished my schooling, I was like, this would be a good time to try something different, to branch out and to go for it. like, or else I'm just gonna stay here and I'm gonna like go through each year, like become more cemented, because I was also working, I was teaching, and I was like, I found like the job in a great school district. I love my coworkers and everything, and it was like, man, this is a place where I'm like, I can feel like I could settle down, but then it's like, but wait, you don't want to settle down yet. So it was like, all right, if this is gonna happen, like this is the time. This it should happen now. And so, at the time of like Charles, he had came out to Team Oyama for a training trip for one of his fights, and he came back and he had nothing but great things to say, and like how much he really enjoyed like just the location, the weather, the training, and everything. And we talked about it, and I was like, man, that sounds amazing. And so that was like my connection to coming to Team Oyama. So I made up my mind that that was what I was going to do. That's one thing that I do, is like I spend a lot of time thinking about things, because I like to plan things out very well. But once I make up my mind that I want to do it, like I make it happen. And so I planned a trip to come out and visit, for my spring break. And from that moment, I was like, all right, I'm gonna make it happen. All right, what do I need to do? Okay, I'm gonna pack up my stuff. I'm gonna come out here, XYZ, and I'm gonna quit my full-time job. But I'm like, but I was, yeah. So this whole coronavirus and everything, like this was all leading up to like, man, like I quit my like job, and I came out here to like really truly fully invest into training and taking my fight career as far as as far as I can take it. um and so that's what happened. I came out here and I just hopped in, and I ran off running. I got 2 fights in right off the back, last year, 2019. And then came back around January, February, then that March fight in LFA, and then the pandemic, and here we are now. So um, I've learned so much, and I've trained so much in this past year and a half, and learned so much, like as a martial artist. And even though like my like so like even though when you see, like when you get into the cage and you fight and the fight goes how it goes, it's like there's still so much that I know that I have like put under my belt, that I have in tools. And I'm just waiting for those opportunities where I get to go out there and like really show what I show everything that I've learned. And I feel really good about that. Even if these fights fall through, I still know that when the opportunity comes, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna put on a show.
I
So.
love it. I absolutely love it, and that's the sentiment, across, your gym, your team, your teammates.
Mm.
Now, I want to know, who who are some of the notables that were there, because obviously, we're talking a little bit over a year ago. I kind of know the names, but in terms of like, who you've taken from in your journey, like who are some of your favorite sparring partners, and then who was there when you first started?
Well, my main training partner, which is kind of funny because it's like little like full circle in a sense. I just a joke about me being like the bigger fighter, but my main training partner was Kelly D'Angelo. Uh,
Holy
and she
moly!
yeah, she fights Invicta as well, and she's 105, and she's on 105, mostly 115. And so it was just like the day in and day out grunt of like, she's having to take my big long self down, and then I'm training with her. And then like fast forward here, I'm like spinning and training with Flo a lot, Flo Honey, and she's a
Yes,
115 or two, and
yeah.
she's short. It is like we become like little fight twin buddies or whatever. Like this is funny, so I just thought that was a little thing. But yeah, Kelly, she was we trained a lot. But also like I've had some other people from our gym, like Josh Sampo. He was in the UFC a little while back. Rice House. We have like a lot of great people from like Strike Force 2 times. EJ Brooks is D1 wrestler. Julius Anglinix. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce that. Julius.
And
He just
yeah.
fought on a Bellator. This the past Bellator card, and he got that win. is there's a handful of names of, and then also like I've also kind of branched out to like we like all of the ladies in St. Louis, like we all get together and also train too, because there's not many of us in the first place. So to like kind of isolate yourself in one gym, you know, in St. Louis, especially like being women, it's like what's the point? So I also worked with a lot of the girls, you know, also around in St. Louis. Kickboxing girls, Lily and Liz, they're my faves. I always go back and visit them when I go back home. So it was more of like a just that's definitely a collective back home in St. Louis. A lot of different fighters. Everyone you could think of from St. Louis mostly, that I've definitely have trained with at one point or the other. Just thinking, I mean, Joaquin Buckley, he just made his second that his whole highlight reel and
Yeah,
everything. Yeah,
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 that Insaguri
yeah,
kick.
yeah. You know, we've definitely run over courses. Funny story. I mean, I think apparently, we went to the same high school, but I don't remember him when he was there because I think I was maybe I already left or he was a freshman or something like that. But we were in the same school because my brother was reminding me of that. So, you know, there's just a lot of great names, and even before me though, just remembering this is before my time, but Woodley came from our gym too in St. Charles in May too. So you know we guys got talent in St. Louis, you know. So we out there.
I think it's absolutely brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. And I want to ask, like, in terms of obviously, accomplished athletic career, pre MMA, accomplished, I mean, in life, basically earning your master's degree, right? But MMA is a different vocation completely. So, in your pursuit of being a complete mixed martial artist, what have you learned about yourself?
Ah, what a great question. I think this whole the past 2 years and this journey that I've been on, like starting with going into my master's. I got my master's in counseling, and so through those studies of like learning about pretty much yourself and how all that whole inner work piece, like I've been like flushing myself with that because I've been my own client while I've been studying and learning myself in that aspect, but through sports, but also through martial arts, because I feel like there's way to cut corners in other sports, but in MMA, like you can't avoid it. You can't avoid it, honestly, in my opinion. Um, I can't avoid my thoughts. I can't avoid why whatever it is, whatever issue that it is going to surface. And I feel like as a whole person, um, whatever challenges and little mental midgets that I've had in my mind, they come to surface. And that's what I've enjoyed the most about it, because like I told you, I love challenges, but honestly, like the mental challenge is the most complex one, you know? And it's a daily practice, but through the sport, it has gotten me to really like dig deep and to really address any types of doubts and fears or anything that's going to cause me to stand in my own way of my own success, whether it's in sports, whether it's in my professional career, whether it's in my relationships with my friends and my families, or any of all of that. It transcends through all avenues of my life, because um, it's you. When you're going out there and you're using your hands and your feet, like it's just you. You don't have any other reason for, you know, why you would, do one of things other, because you're the one in control. So it's all interconnected, and I feel like I've grown so much just like internally, mentally, and just emotionally as a person. It has strengthened me in many facets, and like I feel like it's something that I would always have a part of my life. Like I'll be that old lady over there doing jujitsu, you know what I mean? Like, because I feel like it's that um, it coincides with life in that way. I've been reading a lot of books and everything like that. It all connects. Yeah.
I absolutely love it, But speaking of like connections, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, there have been. I mean, you are the product. You are the sum of all of your experiences, right? So there's been a litany of people along the way that have helped you, connect not only with yourself but them as well. So let's get some
Mhm.
acknowledgments and shout outs out of the way.
All right. You said people that I've made connections with along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's shout them out.
Oh, that's such a long list of people. Where should I begin? Okay. Um, well, first and
Parents are good.
foremost,
I would
yeah,
start with parents and then kind of work your way.
that's exactly where I was going because I'm gonna take it all the way back to my mom putting me in a great program. Like I lived in the city, and at the time we had like this DSEC program that where city kids will go to schools out in the county, and so I she put me in a educational environment that really helped foster me to grow academically, right? So just having that right there, because where would your path go if your environment was different when it comes to education? Because for me, I've learned, and I'm a teacher, so I definitely am a firm believer that knowledge is power, and I feel like having knowledge has definitely given me the edge in many different things. So shout out to my mama. You know, you did that. And of course, and then my mom was the firm one, and of course my dad was the lovey one. So thanks for my dad to give me the balance to pour into me, and all of that. So I'm very fortunate to have two parents who love me and who have done everything that they could to provide the best for me, to allow me to have the mindset to create my life and take it to wherever I want to take it. You know, so and even if a person does do something directly for me, like just being a part of their life too, um, helped me. So my brothers, I know that they look up to me in a little way, so that keeps me going to like, hey, I want to lead by example, and I want to see them being successful too, and just like I want to see that period, like with all my family and all my friends, like support me, I support you. I love seeing like people grow and just being the best version of themselves. So that branches out to like my friends, because they have been, my personal support, through all of this too. My friend Alexis, we make jokes about how we basically are like, in like just like a whole little relationship, and it was really hard, like because we had just really made a really good connection before I left, and it was really sad to leave, because it's like one of those things when you find a really good friend, um, and then to leave, and like it was hard, but even the distance hasn't really changed that. So that has taught me many things about connections with people, that even if you're not necessarily always physically there with them, or even if you don't talk all the time, like just knowing that they're there is still, that still aids and adds to your life, and that you can call them up whenever you need, and just for whatever it is. So like just all of that type of love and emotional support, because man, every day on the daily doing gritty, violent, harmful things to my body, I need some softness in my life too. And so that's definitely been a good part of it. But I mean, when it comes to like just like when it comes to like athletics, every coach that I've worked with, they've poured into me in one way or the other, and it's still with me, from yay high, from basketball coaches. My basketball coaches, Coach Spain, Coach Clear, Coach McCullough, all these coaches that I've like, coaches have been a very big part of my life. Coach Furt Winkler, Coach Reader, everyone from high school that who's poured into me, who's wanted to see me successful, and they took their time and energy, without asking anything in return, because they saw something in me and they believed in me, and they wanted to do whatever they could to be that. And my track coaches in high school is Coach Hammy. I still love that lady. She taught me how to triple jump at a track meet, and that was the beginning of my whole success in triple jump, because triple jump ended up being my best event. Um, and then moving on like to college, and Coach Bell, man, there was so many first experiences for him. We spent so much time together. uh, you know, um, oh man. and then like getting into the sport of MMA. You know, Coach Mike Rogers at St. Charles MMA and Coach Jeff and everyone there at St. Charles MMA. Like you know, you're driving and spending your own money and your time and effort to like, you know, go on this fight grind with me, you know, and taking me to fights and weight cuts and all of that, and hitting the extra pads in between, all of that. All it's, you know, instrumental. Of course, Charles, man, like he got me into this, and it's been that bug in my ear, and that person also, you know, really believing in me, even in times where I was like, I'm not really sure about this, but you know, that inspiration of that, because you know, I can't. Who's to say that I would be here had I not had our paths not have crossed, you know? So, um, it definitely plays a big role in all of that, and these kind of questions, I feel like I can just, you know, I don't want to leave anyone out. So but I guess moving more into present and being here too, here at Team Oyama, I'm so grateful and privileged to be able to be invited in and taken in, you know, by Coach Oyama. And the man is knowledgeable, and the man is, he knows what he's doing, and man, like I just shut up and I just do it, and I trust the process, and like I can't I'm so I'm excited about it. Like I see in real life, in real time, all of what I've endured and what I have taken in already flourishing, and I can't wait to see how much more comes out of that. All my teammates here, because I literally train with like everybody at Team Oyama. Like I'm like a little sore thumb in the gym in a sense, like because I'm the biggest female, and so I don't really have like females my size, but I'm the size of some of the other guys, and so my main training partners end up being the guys, and then that's the whole thing. So it's like I work in both sides of it, and I get like the real grit and hard work with going with the guys, and it's really tough, but man, it makes me so much better, even though I complain about it at the time, but I'm still appreciative of it. Gotta shout out Flo, because me and Flo, since the moment I got here, we've been like roomy together, and we've been like, if I make jokes like a Siamese twins, man, we're like attached at the hip, and when I tell you that like I can be feeling one way at practice, and then she could be feeling the same way, or then one day she's feeling like this, and we're like on this same little trip together, and it has been really amazing to have someone like that you're there with, and you're right there, and you can kind of like process and sort through all of that together, because you know stuff gets hard. I'm moving because I gotta put my phone on charge.
No worries, no worries. But obviously, I mean, and shout out to Flora Honey, because she
Yeah,
too will be. This is fight week for her, for LFA, UFC Fight
yeah,
Pass. Consequently, and she was also on the According to Woods podcast this past Friday, so you should definitely check that out in the archives. Now, one last sell
yeah.
for people that are going to be tuning in on UFC Fight Pass to Invicta 43. What are they going to see out of the quiet storm, Brittney Cloudy?
Well, my name is the Quiet Storm for a reason. I'm not a big talker, and I'm not really big into predictions, because as you know, the weather, the forecast could be this way, and then it could be something else the next thing. But all I can tell you is that this is one of those times where you know that there's going to be precipitation. You know that there's going to be a storm. You just know it. And how destructive it's going to be, you know it's going to bring destruction. And what's going to be damaged, how much is going to be damaged, I can't really say, but you know that there's going to be damage. How fast is it going to happen? How long is it going to? Hopefully, I'm thinking, and I'm feeling very explosive, and I'm feeling like this is going to be one of those don't blink moments. So that's just the feeling in my gut.
I absolutely love it and trust your gut. And I mean, if you're the quiet storm, by de facto, you kind of made me a meteorologist. So yes, yeah, woohoo! Anyway, see, look, Ma, I made it.
Yeah.
Um, But for those who haven't already followed you as you march into Invicta 43 Cage, where can they find you on social media?
Yeah, you can find me on the Quiet Storm _ MMA on Instagram and Quiet Storm _ MMA on Twitter, and the same thing on Facebook as Brittney Cloudy. So across all avenues, Quiet Storm, you'll be able to find me.
Damn right, absolutely. Well, Brittney, heap good skill on you as you head into the Invicta Cage, and thank you guys for watching us here at According to Woods, and we warmly encourage you to subscribe to this very podcast. I mean, Brittney, you're subscribed, right?
Of course.
Of course. And I mean, just don't take our word for it. Here's pro wrestler Zeta Zhang.
Hey, this is Zeta Zhang. Make sure you subscribe